Johnversations Podcast, episode 23. My guest today is one of my oldest and best friends. He's a professional musician, audio engineer, and producer who currently works at the Hideaway Studios in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Jason McGlone. Jay, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, John. It's great to see you.
It's good to see you too, man. I saw that beard and like I haven't seen you. We talk and text and stuff, but I haven't seen you in probably a year. So I was really excited when you said that, you know, you would come on and it was just a good chance to be able to like kick it and hang out and stuff. And then I saw that beard and I was like, that is gnarly as fuck. Like so, I dig it.
It's the COVID beard. And, it's really fun for me to see that you're doing this kind of thing, because I remember in high school, you were doing radio stuff. So that, it kind of just comes full circle that you'd be doing something like this and having conversations with people. Yeah. It's so fun to see.
That's funny. Because I remember the show, I took over the show. I don't know if there was a girl named Bonnie at high school, and I took over the show, and she had already named it, and it was Barbie's Underground Playground or something like that. And I was like, well, I guess that's going to be the name. So I hosted Barbie's Underground Playground for a little bit, but
one for the reel.
Right. Yeah. One for the old demo reel.
Could you ever get your hands on any of those old recordings? Do you think somebody recorded them at some point?
Dude, I have no idea. I don't know if anybody recorded the show, but what I would really like to have is, I was the only, I started working at the radio station in high school, and I was like, man, nobody is interviewing bands. Like, we're a radio station. People are coming in. I mean, I know you and me went to a bunch of concerts just because I was like, oh, I got these tickets. So I was like, I'm just going to start calling these record labels and being like, hey, this band's coming to town. Can I go see them and interview them? And they were like, sure, 16-year-old. Here's some press passes. And but I got to do a lot of phone recording. Like, I remember I interviewed Motion City Soundtrack over the phone for a segment, Pennywise.
Oh, cool.
The Offspring. So I'd like to have those, but I doubt there was anybody who was like, I really like this show. Like, let me record this fat kid on the radio. You know what I mean? So
you never know, man. You never know.
Yeah, it might resurface somewhere. But yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. You are somebody that I can say, I said in the intro, but you are always have been like a brother to me, and kind of getting ready for the show and thinking about you coming on. I was like, man, my personality, my musical taste, the things that I'm into, I don't know if I would be the same person if I didn't get the chance to meet you and we become friends and have the relationship. I mean, we played in bands together. You're one of the only people in the whole world that I can say I've lived in a van with you for weeks on end.
Yeah, exactly. So. I 100% agree. And now that, I've been teaching for a long time too, and doing a lot of drum lessons and guitar and piano and whatever. But when I think about teaching young kids, I think they don't really know why they're doing this. They're just like, oh, I like to play this. I guess my parents want me to do this. I don't know. But it's not until you find somebody with that in common that spark kind of ignites, and you're like, oh, that's why I'm doing music, right? So you can play with other people. And that for me was you, Evan, all those guys, Mark, Todd. Yeah. But when you find that, it all makes sense. Otherwise, you're just, oh, this is fun, or what, whatever.
Yeah, these piano scales are a lot of fun to play over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah, not at all, right? So I see a lot of that and try and connect students with other students, because once that spark happens, it makes a lot more sense to them. But I have a fond memory of, once I found out you played music and Nate and all those other guys, I was like, okay, cool. This is something I want to do, really.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I was really the same. We had played in. I had been playing with Matt and Nate since we were in middle school when we were growing up, which are for people listening, they're just kids that we went to school with who we were all friends with, and but I remember getting into. I mean, there was so much stuff, man. I remember being in your truck and hearing the Get Up Kids for the first time.
Right.
I remember being in your truck or in your Jeep and being this was a long time ago, but I remember being ultra stoned and you were like, dude, have you ever listened to Slipknot? Like real messed up. And I was like, no. And I remember being like terrified of what I was hearing.
Yes.
I was just like, this is the scariest thing ever. So like, but exactly what you said. It was like, if I wasn't playing with Matt and Nate and stuff like that. And then even after we graduated, I was at your house. Like, I remember like I got into a fight with my mom. She kicked me out of the house and I lived with you for like 2 weeks. And so it was just like, get up, like go get something to eat. And then we just played music all day. So, I mean, I don't know, man. It's crazy to it's one of those things that, you know, I think when you're younger and you're in the moment, I mean, cause I'm 35. I know, what are you, 34 now? Are you 35?
34, coming on 35. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So like when you think back to like when you're like 18, 19, 20, in those moments, you're not like, oh, well, this is a very special bond. And like when I'm 30, 40, I'm going to be like, I cherish these memories as something precious, you know, but you get older and you're like, fuck, man.
It's real. Yeah, I know. And, you know, going back to teaching kids too, one of the things that I hear all the time is, you know, about what's going on at school and what's happening. And you just forget at that age, your world is so small. Like, you've got this group of friends and what are we doing today? We're going to go to the park. We're going to go play basketball or whatever. Your world is so small and you have no perspective. And I try and help those kids to see that, like, you may not talk to a lot of these people, you know, anymore. Some of these kids that are either bullying you or giving you a hard time, like, you know, this isn't going to be something that'll follow life. And it's interesting to hear them say, oh, like, I guess you're right, you know, but that world is so tiny in that middle school, high school age. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
It can be brutal, you know,
dude. I mean, like if it was like, I don't know what kind of like lonely ass, sad kid I would have been, because I didn't have the best self, you know, like the good Lord made me portly and I had acne and like, you know, I remember like I dyed my hair with peroxide because I just wanted to be cool. You know what I mean? So like I you know, like I don't know. I don't know if I would have made it through those years without those bonds. And it's crazy because like, you know, the kids who are bullying you and stuff, like, sure, like you may never talk to them ever again or see them ever again. But even the people that like you become the closest with, you're like, oh, you've been like, you go to different schools and you may never talk to that person. So that's one of those things that I think, you know, when I think about like you, when I think about our friend Colin, when I think about like Nate Booz, and I can just be like, text you out of the blue and like we've still, even though again we haven't seen each other in forever, I mean we both grew up in Michigan. You're in Minneapolis now. I'm in Nashville, the Nashville area. So it's like we've got our own things going on, but we have the luxury or like the benefit of being able to be like, oh, like even after all these years, like I knew if I needed something, I could be like, Jay, I got to talk to you, dude. Like Absolutely. I haven't talked to you in like 6 months, but I'm going through something. You got like 20 minutes. And you'd be like, yeah, sure. Timer starts now. Yeah. So,
right.
But, well, 20 minutes, 5 seconds, dude. You need to get over it. Yep. That's my advice.
Or get it out quick. Oh.
Right? I'm teaching. Well, you know, you had mentioned teaching, and that is one thing I wanted to talk to you about too. Is that, you know, you are somebody, and even when we were kids, I was always amazed by this. And again, just being older, I think I'm like more amazed by it now. But you were always that person that like you were always a drummer who I was like, okay, like even in high school and when we were younger, I was like, his skill level is well above his age, right? Like, but you worked at it really, really hard. The thing that always kind of blew my mind about you, and to be honest, something I was always even like a little envious of, was like, it didn't matter what instrument you picked up. If you had like 10, 15 minutes with it, you'd be like, oh, this is how it works. Like I have a memory of you in my head of, we were in Guitar Center and you picked up a banjo, and I don't think you'd ever played one, but you were like, oh, this is what this is what tuning is. And then they're just like, I'm like, yeah. I felt like there was going to be some dude coming out of the back with a washboard. Like you were just going to judge.
Right.
Like you have that mind that is able to kind of figure that stuff out. Is that kind of what brought you to the teaching? Like, is there something about that you're kind of like, I want to like show other kids how to do this and stuff like that? Or what was it specifically that kind of brought you to like, I want to teach kids?
That's a great question. I think, it started out as a necessity. If you're going to be a musician, you have to have sort of multiple outlets of income. Playing shows 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week, 7 nights a week, that's tough for anybody, so part of it was like, wow, I really want to explore this and see what's going on. And to be honest, the first few lessons that I taught at a place called Soundwork Studio. And, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, to be honest. It was like, you get a 6-year-old kid and I have to somehow captivate this kid's attention for the next half an hour. And you as a dad, like it can, well, it's your own daughter, so maybe it's a little easier, but some of these kids, they're coming from a totally different parenting background. You don't know what their home life is like. And I'll tell you, you will find out very quick as a teacher what their home life is like, what their day-to-day things are. And I think having an awareness of what that is can help you to teach that specific child. Are they a visual learner? Are they an auditory learner? Are they a kinesthetic learner? Do they need to do things? And figuring those things out, I think really helps people get to that point where they can explore an instrument, like you said, pick something up and just try and be creative with it right away. And I think I had a lot of great, both teachers and music teachers growing up that helped me to explore that stuff and not be embarrassed about what I sounded like. Or, I mean, that's a big thing too, is a lot of kids are not embarrassed. They, at that age, they're just ready to dive in. And a lot of the adult students that I teach are just like apologizing every other word. And, I'm sorry. It's like, you wouldn't be here if you didn't need to practice. So
right.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's the whole reason you're taking a lesson is
exactly,
so that you
right.
get where you want to be. Don't apologize for learning.
Right. Exactly. So, that's kind of what drew me into teaching in the first place. And to be honest, I was a little skeptical at first, but it really grew on me. And I teach at a place now, Twin Town Guitars, and it's just such a great family of people. And they are currently closed, but we're still doing online lessons. So, yeah.
Now, what's that been like? Because are you doing drum lessons or guitar lessons online?
Right now, just drum lessons, but
okay.
I do teach guitar and piano as well. But the load dropped off quite a bit, with COVID for many reasons. Obviously, financial for a lot of people, and but man, it's been interesting to see the difference between face-to-face interaction and screen time, in a lesson. And some of these young kids respond better to online lessons. It's a little freaky.
It's like playing drums to Fortnite.
I know. Yeah. So I'm happy that it's working, and but they feel more comfortable in front of a screen, which I don't know. We'll see how that pans out.
Dude, so Millie is not even 2 years old yet, and she like iPad. She'll be like all day iPad, iPad. And if you tell her you're like not right now, she goes wait minute, and then she'll go, and then she'll like sit there for a minute, and she'll go minute, and like
wow,
and then
she knows.
If you give it to her and unlock it, she sets it down. She knows where the YouTube Kids icon is.
Wow.
Hits it, and then she's like good to go. So and it's crazy because if you try to take it away from her, like we had to come up with this whole like bye-bye iPad. All right, say bye-bye. Because if you don't, it's like taking a fucking heroin needle from a junkie, dude. They're like, no,
I know.
No, I need Baby Shark. One more hit of Baby Shark, please. So,
yeah. I mean, we'll see what that, culture, how it kind of unfolds over time. But there are a lot of positives to that stuff too, and can you imagine growing up having access to anything, in terms of information, like as a musician, as a creative person, you were a big movie buff growing up. Like if you could just like instant Google,
Yeah. I mean, I remember like, it's crazy now because you'll see like 6, 7, 8-year-olds with smartphones. And I remember you specifically, you had the old Samsung or not Samsung,
Nokia,
the Nokia, the
Snake.
Beat Pop.
Yep.
Well, didn't you have like the 2-way pager one though?
Oh, no, I didn't get that fancy.
I feel like somebody had it because we used to dial in random numbers, and like you would get
right.
like you would like, and I was with you, and I don't remember if it wasn't you, I don't remember who had the phone, but I was with you, and we got Washtenaw County sheriffs, and we're like, hello. And they're like, get off this line. This is the Washtenaw County sheriffs. So we're like, oh, sorry. But you could just punch in random codes and call. But like, I had the Nokia, the one you were talking about, just the blue little brick, and you had to go out. My parents didn't have a cell phone plan, so there was no way. It was like, you want it, go buy the 30 minutes for $40 or whatever.
Totally. Yeah.
I remember being in your basement and just being like, this is so cool. I love this so much.
Yeah, it's certainly meant to stimulate your brain and, to give you a positive feedback. So I'm not surprised that, your little one is interested in it and has figured it out, which is sort of a testament to Apple and their ease of use.
Oh yeah, and if she gets to the wrong screen, like if she opens up like the watch, or not the watch, but the clock, or if she opens up like the wrong, she knows if she can hit that button, it'll take her back to the home screen, which, in some ways, like the hand-eye coordination, I think is good. I don't want to like completely take it from her and be like, you don't need this, because growing up, I mean, if you think about like the leap from when we were kids to now, just that, I mean, I was talking about with Kara the other yesterday, but we're like, do you remember Napster? Do you remember like when you wanted to listen to a song online, you had to wait like a day and a half for the Blink 182 single to download? And now he's just like, what's up, Spotify? Like, what's up?
Instant gratification.
It's insane. Like, you don't have to wait for anything. So it's, I part of me feels like I would much rather her like kind of learn it younger in like a controlled environment, so that when she gets older, she can kind of adapt with it. You know what I mean? It's just
right. Yep.
I don't know. I wouldn't be, she doesn't have a TikTok or anything yet. I'm not going to let her do that. But
right.
They don't need the Chinese spying on her.
But. No, certainly not.
So, you moved from Michigan to St. Paul and went to McNally Smith School of Music, graduated there. And then, you're doing the teaching. And are you still playing in the same band that you were playing in?
Yes, still playing in a band called the Fontanelles. We just released some stuff online on Bandcamp that we've been working on for the last maybe 3 or 4 years. And we went up to our bass player's cabin and brought a console and a bunch of microphones and other stuff. And we really just wanted to record in an environment that we weren't always looking at the clock. Which I find a lot of people these days are sort of interested in that idea, as opposed to being at the studio and being like, we got to get these songs done. We got to hurry up.
I booked an 8-hour day. I've got
exactly. Yeah. And I think when you remove that, really great things can happen performance wise. There's a lot of stress that's sort of lifted off of, I got to get this take perfect. It's like, nah, maybe we'll come back to that. Let's go, grill some brats for a little while and come back to it,
right. Let's have a beer and like fire, whatever.
Yep. And so that was a really great process, and I try and keep that in mind when I'm recording other people and how they're feeling in the moment, and if they've eaten something, or it's a big part of performing is just how you feel.
Yeah. And you're 100% right. Cause I mean, if you are preoccupied with something, or your mind is someplace else, or, you're, like you said, like, hey, like, have you eaten anything? Or like, what have you eaten? Like, I remember, like Jeff Robinson was like, we drink tea in the studio when we were recording. We don't drink coffee. Coffee dries out your voice. You drink tea, So it's like, if you've got this other stuff going in your head, and I feel like it's like, I mean, we are talking about it as people who played music, but I feel like it's for anything. I mean, if you're painting and you're distracted by something else, is that, and is the end result going to be what it could be, or what you really, wanted it to be? You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. Yep. So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, continuing on that, in terms of just performing currently, with all this COVID stuff, it's just been crazy to see everybody's schedule just clear. I mean, people that had tours set up throughout the year, through next year, it's all canceled, and every sponsor is pulled out of everything. It's a really crazy time for musicians, and we're going to start seeing people collaborating a lot more online, which presents its own set of problems. But yeah, I think we're just going to have to adapt, And I had a good conversation with a bass player friend of mine, and he was talking about, losing all this income. What are you going to do for a job? And he brought up a good point of like, musicians have big egos. That's very true. And are their egos too big for them to go get a job at a grocery store?
Right.
Or go, you spend your whole life working on something, and then all of a sudden you have to go get a job and make ends meet. It's a very strange transition for a lot of people when you've done something for 30 plus years, whatever,
I play licks. I don't bag groceries.
Right. I mean, people think that way,
Yeah.
So it's strange, we're all just trying to navigate through it and see what happens, maybe wait it out. Who knows,
Yeah, man, I'm really hoping, like I've really tried to have some people that I know who are in bands or like, touring, and that's how they make their money, stuff like that. I've tried to have those folks on the show so that we can be like,
cool.
Hey, where can you go buy a t-shirt? Where can you go, pay for a download, something like that? Cause it's, it's nuts. I mean, I've had, Joey was on cause Kaleido is,
I watched that one. It was great.
Stephanie from Edison Clio was on.
Cool.
She's in a band out of Brooklyn called Desert Sharks, which is like a dark, like all girl surf, or all woman, I should say. But like all woman, like kind of like surf rock 50s punk band, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, it's just like, I don't know, man. It's one of those things. Kara asks me all the time. She's like, what are your, and this was kind of before I started the podcast, but she's like, what are your goals? Like, what are your ambitions? And I'm like, Kara, like, we got a house. The mortgage is paid. We own a car. The car payment is paid. Like, because like when I was younger, that was all stuff that like I was like, man, like I'm not sure, especially being like playing in as many bands as we did and stuff like that. Like I was like, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to have any of that stuff. So now that I have it, I'm like, anything after this is like extra.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So, doing the podcast was just like, okay, I've got everything I want. I miss putting something out into the world, so like, let me like just start getting people that I think are cool and like sitting down and talking. So, it's
awesome.
It's weird. I don't know, man. It's like, it's hard for me. And I it's crazy because I think that I was like that when I was younger. I was like, fuck this job at Subway, bro. I played bass in a punk band. Like, like I'm playing this youth group tonight.
Right. Like, dude, I know. I'm right there with you.
We're going to get signed to I just got signed to Hazeltine Records.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So it's just like, I can't imagine. I think you're right. It's the ego thing when you get older to be like, well, I mean, I've never done anything like that ever. So why am I going to start now?
Totally.
Has that been, I mean, like, what has it been like for you? Cause I mean, I know like you were, not only were you playing in the band, but you were also traveling, like you were going out of the country.
Yeah. Yep.
You had some like beautiful photos. So like, what is it like for you going from that? Like, hey, I'm in Europe and I'm having a great ass time. And then it's like, you're not going anywhere, dude.
Yeah. It's, I imagine it started off the same way for other people too, but it was like, oh, this is interesting. Just like being home a lot. I kind of like this. And it's a nice sort of change of pace, and it really helps you realize what's important in your life. And that was like, almost, a week into it, I was like, oh, all these things that I'm, filling my schedule with and doing this and that. It's like, none of it really matters when you lose it all instantly, you know?
Right.
And you realize how fragile everything is. And it just kind of starts to narrow that perspective a little bit and be like, oh, family, friends, checking in on people, seeing how people are doing. Like, this is the stuff that really, really matters and is fulfilling. The rest of it's, you know, it's just a job. Could end at any time.
Yeah.
For anyone.
And I think that's the other thing too, is like, not only just because I'll admit, man, I was one of those people, like, when everything started coming, I must have been like the beginning of March. I was like, this is just some, like, it's over, kind of like the murder hornets, right? Like, all you heard was like murder hornets are coming.
Yeah.
And then I saw one video of a praying mantis fucking up a murder hornet. And that's the only thing. So like, coming into like beginning of March, I was like, man, like, it's all hype. Like, and then all of sports shut down. It was like, and I was like,
that was when, like, oh, this is real.
Yeah. And I, like, somewhere in there, I went from like being at it's not really to like, this is like the, like, I feel, part of me feels like I'm like I'm having the feelings that somebody who like lived in the Spanish flu would have, where I'm just
totally.
like, because it's just, I don't know, man. I think that like, you kind of realize that, like, everything, the crazy, like with the coin shortage, it's just like, or like the
toilet paper shortage, or
you're like, oh, our entire society like hangs on a thread, and like, it's just,
absolutely
everything crumbles. It's insane.
Yeah, it was amazing how quickly that happened and how slow everything was to react to it. There's a great movie that my partner Mary and I just love called Shin Godzilla. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't. Is it like one of the old?
No, it's a remake of like the original story, but they did this interesting twist, and all of the like special effects are super wacky looking. It's very, very cool. But the whole premise of the movie is that Godzilla's in the city destroying stuff, and then it just cuts to these long scenes of these Japanese government officials arguing about stuff and not figuring anything out. What, you know, nobody wants to put their reputation on the line. They're like, well, I better not say that. So, you know, I'm going to keep my job. Meanwhile, Godzilla is destroying everything. It's a really fascinating take on on how government works.
Listen, my conservative base is very pro Godzilla, so I don't want to come out. I got to get reelected next year.
Yeah, it's crazy. But check that movie out. Some of those scenes are just brutally long, like board meeting, you know, people going back and forth, and it's exhausting, but you should watch it. It's really, really good.
Well, I mean, I think that's a great metaphor for like what's going on. You know what I mean? It's like they were like, well, we'll send everybody $1,200, and
you kidding me?
Let's give Kanye like 3 million or 3 billion, and let's bail out all the churches that don't pay taxes and stuff. Like give them. And Dr. Phil needs a couple billion too. Like they gave Dr. Phil PPP payout, and then his son bought a $10 million home.
Oh my gosh!
So I'm just like,
infuriating,
dude. It's like, I don't know, man. It's so crazy to like, because you're right, man. Like, COVID is Godzilla, and it's just in the situation. It's just like we had our highest day was over here in Tennessee. It was over 3,000 cases in one day.
Wow, yeah,
so
that's a lot.
You know what I mean? And like. I am one of those people, and maybe I shouldn't do this, but I argue with people on Facebook all day long. I'm like, wear the fucking mask. Like,
it's not hard. Just put it on.
Or like, next time
protecting other people, that's
I think Jon Stewart said it best when he was like, hey, you know what? Guess what? Next time you go get a surgery, tell that pussy doctor to take off his mask and don't wash his hands. Dive in there like a real man. That's
a good point. It's a really good point.
But
people will have to accept their actions in the end. If you get COVID, there's that story in the news of that kid that went to a COVID party where, kids are going and putting in a pool, and whoever gets COVID first gets the money. Well, this kid went to the hospital and died, and his last words were, that was a mistake.
I think I made a mistake.
Yeah, it's like, well, man, this is no joke. You're starting to see people that you love. I don't know if you've experienced that at all, but people are getting COVID and getting sick and dying. Like,
oh yeah, we have
what more do you need? You know?
Yeah, we have a friend whose mom has it, and she's like, dude, she can't walk from the couch to the
Oh my
refrigerator,
gosh. Yeah,
like without
it's a
feeling like
shame.
she's gonna pass out. And the thing that really like just pisses me off beyond belief is the people who are like, this is unconstitutional.
I know.
And it's
wild.
Like, do you wear shirts and shoes into a store, or do you wear your seatbelt, or like,
Right.
is it a violation of your rights that you can't get plastered and then drive home? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this isn't, it's an inconvenience. I mean, I don't like, it's not comfortable for me. I have a fat ass head. It's not, they pull my ears down. I look like, what was that Val Kilmer movie, Willow?
Yeah.
You know, I look like a fat willow with my ears just like sticking out. But I'd much rather look ridiculous. I was in, we went and picked up Little Caesars today for dinner because we, on Thursdays, if we do, you know, the podcast, I'll pick something up so that we can just eat quick. And
totally.
I was in there and I had my mask on, and some dude comes in and blue jean carpenter shorts, and then he had some crazy NASCAR cutoff t-shirt, no mask, and he looks at me and goes, well, it's about time to die, huh? Because I had the mask on. He was just, and I was like, I'm not lying. You can go ahead, dude.
Right.
Like,
oh my God.
But it's just, I mean, I don't like, and in the Spanish flu, the thing that I was reading was crazy. Like in this, when the Spanish flu was happening, if you didn't wear a mask, they threw you in jail. It wasn't like, hey, please wear a mask. And then there was a group of people who were against wearing masks, and the pro-mask people just essentially found them all and kicked the shit out of them. It was like, wear a mask. You know what I mean? So it's like, but now you can't do that without being like, you're not respecting my boundaries. This is my choice as an American. You know, it's like,
it's private property. You don't have the choice.
Yeah.
You can leave the store.
It's a tizzy down here because Walmart and Kroger and everybody is making you wear one now, starting on Monday. So everyone
are upset.
Yeah, I'm in a Facebook group for our neighborhood, and everybody's like, "This is communist China."
God, can't you just care about your neighbor's well-being and just put a mask on and shut up?
Yeah, well, and it's like also people are. This is the South, man. People wear those face covers to sit in deer blinds for like 12 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, I got to kill. I'm soaked in deer piss. I got to kill this deer. But if you got to wear one for 20 minutes so you don't get grandma, you know.
Right.
You know, and that's the crazy thing to me too is, you know, we have a friend who was a COVID nurse. She's been on the show.
Goodness.
She's now at a different hospital working in a different wing, but she was like, yeah, man, people, like, I've let people borrow my phone to FaceTime and be like, hey, I was a good run. I love you. I'll see you on the other side.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know, dude.
That's heavy.
That's the thing. I was like, I don't want that to be me. You know what I mean? Like Kara and I were talking about too, like if we were single, I don't know if we'd be as like careful as we are being right now. Like maybe we play a little bit more like, or not even if we were single, but if like we didn't have a kid. But now it's like, oh, if you get it, I've got our daughter for the rest of my life by myself if something happens, or vice versa. You know what I mean? So it's just like
changes that perspective quite a bit, I'm sure.
Well, what do you think? Let me ask you this, because, you know, like I know here in Nashville, we had open bars and everything like that. And then they were like, we made a mistake. And so now everything, we've regressed back into like our phase 2 is what they call it. What do you think it's going to look like when, because I like Nick Fugetti was on the show and he's like, yeah, man, I just did a backyard, or I just did a patio show. You know what I mean? And I was like, dude, you're way braver than I am. But like, like, what do you think it's going to look like when you're able to get back in? Like, you think we're still going to be doing, I guess my question is like, if you're playing to like a 50% crowd or 50% capacity, like, is that something at that point that's even financially like worth doing, I guess?
Yeah, I don't think so. The job of performer is going away, and at least for the time being, you know, this may recover in 5 years or something like that. But as we know it right now, being a performer is not a viable way to make your living. And even if, you know, there's been places here that we'll do patio shows. They have like a jazz series at this place called the Ice House that's been doing patio shows 6 feet apart. But it's just not the same. If you have 2 gigs on your calendar for the month, that's just not the same. You used to have 8 or 12, and those 2 gigs maybe pay half of what they used to because it's half capacity. And these businesses were already struggling, and going, a couple months with no income as a business is really tough. Colin, great friend, I've known him forever.
Oh yeah.
He works for a company called Pennies. And, when he talks about what it was like that first month to have nothing coming in as a business and have to pay for rent, and payroll is a big one. I mean, you're paying your employees this entire time. I mean, that is tough stuff right there. And I've seen tons of businesses in Minneapolis close. Places that have been here for 20 years are closing, and it's just heartbreaking to see,
Well, it's insane too when you realize that like a successful restaurant runs at like 4 to 6% profit margin if they're doing like really well. So it's literally, and that's like if you just own one restaurant, not like, okay, I own this and I'm gonna take that and I want to open a second place. Like a lot of people in yeah, I mean, there's people in Nashville that own, a handful of restaurants, or like we started this, then we opened this one. And so, when you think about it, it's like you're not bringing in that much money that you can. Yeah. One thing I thought about was, speaking of Colin and Pennies, because Pennies is a coffee shop, right?
Yes.
So I thought about the coffee beanery, because when you and I were like our senior year of high school and then just out of high school, we worked at the same coffee shop.
Yep.
And I started thinking about Don Juan, and who was the owner, for people who are listening. And like that place, even without COVID, it was like
they're just hanging on by the
it was like
thread.
Like they were making enough money to keep the lights on, but they weren't making any profit. And I was like, oh man, like this, like if this would have happened then, like would have killed him.
Right. In many aspects, it may have been better for them, if they just closed right away, as opposed to how many years did they own that place?
Dude, they were still open.
You kind of see my point, right? It's like, if they were open for 5-10 years and just going farther and farther into debt, it's just heartbreaking to see, and you really start to see how those companies work, like franchises, and they make you buy these certain machines that cost twice as much as other ones. And, it just seems like a scam. To help you. No, nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're like, well, you must not be promoting our muffaletta sandwich.
I was just telling
maybe
Kara,
you need more window stickers. I was
it's like, just telling Kara about the muffaletta sandwich. I was like, do you like andouille sausage? We used to have this. Oh my, do you remember so for people listening, this place was opening, and Jay and I, we applied at the same time. We got hired on at the same time. Mm-hmm. And do you remember the trainer Chuck?
I do, absolutely.
Chuck bucks.
Yep, Chuck bucks.
Here you go, buddy. Here's the Chuck buck. It was like, what do you do with the Chuck buck?
Right. Oh yeah, it's a weird scene. And at the time, when you're a kid, you're just happy to be working a job. But when you get older, you're like, man, this is messed up. And that's why small businesses, it's the way to go. And I try to support all the stuff that's around here as much as I can, kind of from that experience, seeing what Don Juan had to struggle with. And, he stayed at our house for a month, like he literally slept in our spare bedroom. This was our boss, and he was an amazing guy. I mean, I'm sure you remember the times. I'll never forget, my 21st birthday, and I had to go into work the next day, and I was probably working at 5:30, 6 in the morning, and Don Juan looked at me. He said, "You look terrible," and he told me to go in the back and sleep, for a couple hours, and I was just like, "This guy is amazing. This is I mean, what a human being!" Like, I probably would have been fired at any other job, but he cared about people, and he cared about what people were going through in the moment. And yeah, just an amazing guy.
Oh, well, Lord knows he gave me more chances than like I remember being like hanging out with you, and for the people who are listening, in the town that we grew up in, there was a 24-hour diner called Zach's.
Mm-hmm.
So like, we would drink or do whatever, and I would have to be there at like 5 a.m. to open. And there was a couple of times where you like we had been hanging out all night, and then you dropped me off to open the store. So I'd just be like, "What's up?" And then they had the oven that had the hood that blew everything out, so it'd be just me. And they had security cameras, but they didn't record. So I would fire up the hood and then take out the one hitter. Again, I wasn't a dad. I was much younger then, but I'd take out the one hitter and then just blow it up into the hood and it'd be gone. I remember I was supposed to open. I got all the coffee brewing and I fell asleep on the couch. I was like, I'm gonna close my eyes for like 15 minutes because it was ahead of schedule. And I woke up and there was a line of people just like banging on the glass. I was like, my bad. I worked there for like 3 years after that.
Yeah, he was the most gracious man, clearly, I mean, and, didn't deserve any of that he was dealt, in opening that business and what he was going through with his family and all that,
Well, do you remember he wanted to open an office supply store? I will never forget. He was like, I want to open an office supply store. I came home and my wife bought this coffee shop.
Yeah.
Just didn't tell him.
Yeah.
She was like, I got a great deal on this franchise.
Right. And it's total exploitation. The way that they present those kind of meetings are like pyramid schemes, it seems so attractive and shiny and, and then you start looking at the numbers, you're like, oh. Yeah. Terrible.
Well, I think you also have to think about where you're like if you're going to franchise like a Taco Bell or a McDonald's, you're probably going to be all right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But like if you're franchising into a coffee shop that is only popular in like a specific part of Los Angeles. Right. Yeah, I remember watching Scrubs all the time, and that's what they always had, coffee beanery cups or like, because that's where it was popular, but like nowhere else. And now I only ever see it in like bad gas stations.
Yep.
It's like,
airports,
you want a cafe caramel?
Oof.
Yeah. The crazy thing was that I the entire time I worked there, I didn't drink coffee. And then I got older and I'm like, oh, I love, like, this is great. Every morning I have to have it. And then like the entire time I was like, this is garbage. So I wasted like 4 years of
potentially free coffee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely would have been free. No doubt about it. But I also remember, oh man, I wasn't working that day, but you were, when the dude came in and tried to rob him.
Yeah. Yeah.
He came in with a knife, and for those, I can only describe Don Juan as like Mr. Miyagi, but like younger looking. Like he spoke the same way. He just didn't look as old, even though he probably was older.
Like, he was. Yeah. Yep, he was, but he can.
Did I lose you? Oh, there you go. I got you. You cut out just for a second. Yep. Yeah, but that dude came, from what I understand, like he came in with a knife and came after him, and he just disarmed him, took him down right in the store.
Disarmed him. Yeah.
He was always breaking stuff crazy, too. That's the other thing that I remember is that he would, like, you remember he got mad at his wife and he kicked that broom in half. Like there's that broom loon up. He's like, yeah, just snapped it in half. Because it was so funny. He was, and I'm sorry to talk about him so much, but like he's one of those people that like if you have never met, I don't think you would think that he actually existed. But he was. I just remember him telling us about.
I know.
Like, he grew up
trying to get
fighting.
him on the podcast.
Oh my dude! If I knew how to get a hold of him, if your parents,
my parents are in touch with him, I'll have him. Yeah, he's living in Lansing, and I think he's translating for the Capitol building or something. Like he's translating stuff from Korean, which I'm like, that's a perfect job. You know?
Like good career move.
Yeah,
but Yeah, man. Like I just remember him being like, I used to bare knuckle fight in the street in Korea. He was like, I joined the military because I had to.
Yeah. His dad started the South Korean government. You remember him telling that story? He escaped in the night, like in a cloaked, like in a hood with, 6 other people or whatever. And they literally ended up starting the South Korean government.
They're like, what? Not doing this anymore. We're out. We're the first defectors.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wasn't his dad like some crazy doctor too? Like,
yeah, he was a surgeon. Yep.
He was just like Varsity Blues. He was like, I do not want your life. Came to America. This is like, I'm out.
Yep.
Totally. I love that guy, man. And there's just like I say, he's one of those people that like he's hard to explain, because if you never met him, you would be like, oh, this is too crazy of a story for like a real person. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
yeah,
I don't know. That's nuts. Like, but one thing I did want to ask you is, and I definitely, want to make sure we're talking more about music and stuff too, but like you live in St. Paul in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And like, George Floyd happened, and then it just seemed like you guys were the epicenter. I remember texting you being like, hey man, like, are you okay? Cause there was the looting and everything like that. And I just wanted to like kind of ask, like, it seems like things have settled. I know there's still like protests and stuff going on, but it seems like it's kind of like the violent side has kind of settled down a little bit. Like what was that like? Cause I can only imagine, like, I kept thinking like, oh man, like, could I picture myself in like the LA riots, or like, could I picture myself in like, I was like, I have no idea what that experience would be like.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It's really hard to even explain. I mean, I'll try and do my best. But the first night that it happened, I think a lot of people knew that something was going to happen in retaliation to, what was going on. I mean, if you watched that video, and you have a heart in beating in your chest, you cannot help but just be disgusted by it. I mean, it's
For
absolutely, horrific to see. And I think what people forget is that this wasn't the first time this had happened in Minneapolis. This wasn't, once in a blue moon kind of thing. This is stuff that happens every single day. And, when you're pushed to that point, you're going to erupt, and that's what happened in Minneapolis. And people took to the streets and, they burned it down. And, my experience, I went out the second day and couldn't believe, kind of what I was seeing. And I also kind of realized how little I know, and, how my white privilege has sort of affected my own life. But I was going out to the march second day, and there's a Wells Fargo bank right on Lake Street. That's, a couple blocks from my house. This is where this all is happening. So I'm very close to all this. And the entire building was burned down, and people were pulling out ash and soot and furniture and sweeping water into the street. And it was like a 50-person brigade of people that were volunteering and all helping clean everything up. And my first thought was, oh my gosh, it's so amazing to see people all banding together after such a, thing like this. This is amazing to see our city unite. And then, I went to a rally, and this woman she was a, former Black Panther, and she was speaking, and she said, hey, I saw a bunch of people, helping out the Wells Fargo and cleaning it out. And she's like, she literally said, fuck Wells Fargo. She said, why are people helping Wells Fargo? This is the last person that needs help and needs, so instantly is like perspective change.
Yeah.
From
like
literally like 5 minutes apart, where I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Like, we'll clean up Wells Fargo when they start giving us fucking loans.
Yeah, exactly. So, I was just blindsided. I didn't know what the hell is going, it's really helped shape my view of what's going on. And even talking to people of color that are in my community, and our experiences are vastly different of how police interact with myself and with them. Being a drummer, I usually have my drums in my car, and every time I've been pulled over in Minneapolis, a cop's like, "Whoa, cool, you're a drummer, all right, and then have a nice night," whatever. And some of my black friends who have drums in their car get pulled over, and they're getting stalked and arrested for nothing. And
who'd you steal those drums from?
Exactly, man. And that's the kind of stuff that you start to see, and you're like, man, this is something's got to change here. And I know that Detroit, had some issues with that in the past until they, started having officers that were living in the city, which is, really what I think Minneapolis was missing, is a lot of our officers don't live in the city. So they're not in touch with what's going on. And, if you were hanging out with somebody at a backyard picnic or whatever, or barbecue or hang, and, then you see them on the street, you're not going to shoot them, right. That person. Or you're not going to or whatever. And having those relationships and communities, I think, is huge, man. We desperately need that. And Minnesota has been, the Minnesota nice state for a long time. And, I think it's all, I don't know, we need to reevaluate that slow, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, I know a lot of, and it's hard, man. Cause like I have some friends here who are police officers, and, it's hard. Cause like, I know that, especially the one that comes to mind, I'm like, I know that you're a good dude. I know, like, he's really pushing for everybody on his department to learn jujitsu so that they can, like, hey, if we get into these situations, I don't have to use lethal force. Like, that's not your first,
right.
Thing to do. So, like, I know he's a good guy. He has good intentions, and he actually, we're friends with him and his wife. And, he's like, he makes an effort to, like, get out of the car, be in the community,
Mm-hmm.
like, get to know, like, people in his community know him by, his first name, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So, I know there's an argument of like, well, if I'm a cop and I live in the city, or I live in the area that I patrol, and then somebody has a problem with me, they can target me like way easier. So I get that. But I mean, I think at the very least, it's like, dude, like, get out of your car, walk a beat, like, make it, like, I think, put 2 cops walking a beat and 1 cop in a car just waiting in case they need backup on something. But like, you shouldn't just be driving around being like, oh, let me stop this guy, or this could be suspicious, let me stop this guy. You know what I mean? And there's too many videos out there of people just getting their rights violated. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yep. Straight up. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. Do you remember practical law class? Because I
do.
Like, yeah. Where they taught you what to do, like what to do if you get pulled over. And I remember the video. The thing that sticks out to me the best is it was a video they showed us in school, and the cop, he goes, "Inside of your car smells like Bob Marley's asshole." And I was like, I don't know. I don't know
this
how
is
that's
what they're showing kids.
Yeah, because like the video was, okay, this is a scenario, like, you've been smoking weed in your car, you get pulled over, the cop comes to your car, and they teach you, like, roll your window down just enough to hand everything out, lock your doors if you get out of the car, lock your car, everything like that. If you do have something, like, ask for them to get a warrant to see if they'll actually, get a dog and get a warrant, everything like that. But for some reason in the video, I don't know, like, why, but the cop literally said, "The inside of your car smells like Bob Marley's asshole," and I just lost it. I just thought it was like, I was like, I don't understand why this is. I think it was something that was made to be shown to like older kids, but sure. I don't know if there was really a lot of material that they could be like, well, let me pick it for this age group. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah. And, continuing on the experience of, like, what's happened, at night 3 or 4, it's hard to even remember anymore, as we're in lockdown, the city's literally in lockdown, having a curfew. And people were talking about, finding incendiary devices in their, in their lawn or, behind their house or whatever, that people were coming in from out of town and dropping stuff off. And, at first it's kind of like, yeah, whatever. I don't know why somebody would do that. But literally our neighbors found, a couple cans of gas in their bushes. So we, Mary and I, well, actually she went out and was looking past curfew and looking for things in the bushes and whatever. And I kid you not, about, 5 minutes later, a Black Hawk comes hovering above the house and shined a light on her and was like, get back inside, basically.
Jesus.
But, I know that was the first time I was like, this is crazy. And we had some binoculars, you could see NSA spy planes overhead and, tons of choppers. And I mean, it was just surreal to see what was happening. And then to see a whole other group of people saying, I'm not going to have a curfew. I'm going out. I'm going to protest. I'm going to be in the streets and, fight for what I believe like this. It's crazy, man. I mean, never experienced anything like that.
Yeah, it's nuts too, man. Like I think the thing that I was reading about that was the craziest is how they were identifying like some of the looters. So like they're using, they're using like traffic light cam. They found one lady, they took her shirt and ran it through a database and found the shirt design on Etsy, and then contacted that Etsy owner, got the list of every person who bought that shirt, narrowed it down to this one person. And they were like, yep, you're going to jail. So it's like,
yeah,
it's just crazy. Like the technology that they have. Like if there's stealth planes and Black Hawks, and that's the one thing too. Like I'm all for, like, if you want a gun for hunting or something like that, like by all means, like doesn't bother me. I'm not like, yeah, I think if you need an AR-15 to hunt, you're just a shitty hunter. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but like,
absolutely.
but or give the deer one and make it fair, and like whoever comes out.
Yeah,
you know
right.
what I mean? But
exactly.
Like to think like, oh, I've got this AR-15 because I'm gonna overthrow a tyrannical government. And it's like, bro, like you've got Black Hawk helicopter, right? Like you're gonna be, they're gonna drop a drone on you.
It's gonna be over.
Missile on you before you can do anything.
Yep. Yeah, that was apparent. And any troublemakers who were coming into the city, because there were, people, we probably counted 10, 15 cars driving by with no plates, and just suspicious stuff like that. Because it just drew a lot of people in that wanted to shake things up. It's crazy, man.
Well, I know down here in Tennessee, I told you, our friend who's a police officer, they were working 12-hour, 7-day shifts because there was white supremacist groups that were advertising on Craigslist, being like, "Hey, go down to Murfreesboro," which is like Middle Tennessee. It's like Nashville, Murfreesboro is Middle Tennessee.
Okay.
And they're like, "Throw a brick through a window. We've got we'll pay for your legal fees, all this stuff," trying to make it look like trying to make it like a race war. You know what I mean? So they're literally having to work 12-hour days because there's white nationalist domestic terrorists that are like, "Hey, let's, now's our fucking opportunity." It's ridiculous, man.
It is. It's craziness, and, not to get too, political or dive down that rabbit hole, but, for the first time in history, we've had a president who is trying to divide us. And it's a weird thing, and should be the job of the president is to unite people and get us together. And he's not playing that card.
Yeah. Well, I told somebody, I think I was talking about it on the podcast, but I was like, I don't blame Trump for systemic racism, but I do blame him for, having a 1,000-foot fan to the flame. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Or when he wanted to take that photo op of him, at the church. So he was blasting people with pepper. I'm like, that dude, I've said it before, but I would love to hear him try to pronounce Ephesians. You know what I mean? like Hopefully, the word is bigly Ephesian, and you know what I mean. I don't know the oranges of this word. What are the oranges? But and it's gosh. I don't know, man. It's crazy too because you see videos of like protesters or cops that are rolling up. Protesters have like water and milk and everything stacked up, and the cops are rolling up and they're dumping out gallons of milk and stealing their water. It's like, I know. Like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. It's crazy.
I don't know, man. I've talked about this, but I mean, do you think? I think there was two things at play. One, COVID, right? Because for like months leading up to George Floyd, it was like, stay home. We're all in this together. Take care of your neighbor. Don't go out. Stay home. Love each other. Be good to each. And there's like ABC, like Lady Gaga and Alicia Keys and Paul McCartney and the Stones get back together. And it's like, oh, like the world is healing, and that's the message that you're getting. And then as soon as there's any kind of break, it's like, put your knee on his neck. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I just feel like it kind of like, I feel like COVID kind of cut the wick on the dynamite. And it was like, oh, fuck this. And then two, I think that video was just so, you see video after video after video, but I felt like this video was one that there was absolutely no argument for. Right. You couldn't say he was resistant. He's on the ground. He's handcuffed. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I don't know, man. So I know Minnesota is talking about like, hey, we're getting rid of police. Is that right? Are they? Well,
they voted on it, but there have been no developments in, what the plan is actually going to be. They started off kind of talking about modeling it after a town in New Jersey that had been doing this for a while.
Camden.
Yep, Camden. And if you've done any research or looked into that, it's kind of interesting because with less police on the streets, they still need a way to monitor what's going on. And so that means an increased number of cameras and shot detectors and things like that. And, I'm not sure that's a good idea either. I have no idea. I'm one to value my privacy in the digital age. There's a lot of stuff like that going on, or people don't know what they're signing over. But, I don't think they have a plan yet, at least to the best of my knowledge. I haven't looked in a while, but I know that they're looking at every possible option, and then they're sort of going to, assess from there. But, they made it pretty clear that they want change. So that has been decided.
I need to do better about my digital privacy because my nudes are out there, bro. You can find them.
The struggle's real. You get it.
It was one of those fappening leaks. I was like, I don't know how they got my iCloud password. Now there's pictures of my butthole everywhere. It's terrible.
Right, man. Yeah. So I don't know what's gonna happen. I'll definitely keep you updated. But,
yeah, man. I was just like, I don't know. I could liken it to like if you were if you were alive, or like if you were older in the early 90s and you had a friend that was like right in the middle like that, like as soon as I saw that was happening, I was like, bro, I hope Jay and Colin are good. You know what I mean? So I was like, let me just like hit them up and make sure that they're all set. Cause like, it's like, it's crazy because it's like, even if something was looted or set on fire, it seemed like most of the community was like, yeah, let it burn. Like there's that
they absolutely were. Even business owners were like, we have insurance.
Yeah.
This is important enough to where we're not heartbroken that our business is gone. And, it's hard for people to understand that. And I think that's been a big point of contention about what's happened here is, well, you don't need to loot. Well, looting has been a viable means for protest for a long time. And if you've been to Europe or you've seen any news in Europe, you also know it's the same thing there. When something needs to change, everybody takes to the street and they get it done, and they get change that they want. And I think, we're so pacified here in the United States that, it's hard to get everybody rallied up together. So,
well, I mean, I know Martin Luther King said that, looting is the voice of the unheard. You know what I mean? It's like
Exactly.
you can only, and I mean, I feel like even now, man, like, you know, black folks and people of color, they're asking for, hey, like let's change some of this systematic racism that's in the system. Yeah, let's end cash bond. Let's, you know what I mean? Let's stop over policing. Let's stop making it where cops can kick down your door when you're sleeping and shoot you in your bed. Like let's and then we're like, well, we'll change the name of the Redskins and, you know, let's you know, let's tear down these statues. You know what I mean? Which, like, Neil Brennan said it, but he was like, I've never seen a statue that's made me feel anything. He's like, I've never looked at a statue and been like, oh, that really, that touches me right here. They're
really
just
connect with that. Yeah.
Right. They're just like, a lot of them are just racing
a
relics, or they're just a statue. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yep, I know.
It's
we
like,
need to focus those efforts into more productive things. And, you know, it starts on the community level, I feel like, especially here, because I'm speaking only from my experience in Minneapolis. You know, I'm not saying it's like that everywhere in the United States, but there's been a long history of the police not doing a good job here. And it just came to a pinhead, you know? It just popped.
I mean, I looked into when everything started happening, because where we live, we're halfway between Murfreesboro and halfway between Nashville. Kind of like Canton was, like halfway between Ann Arbor, halfway, you know, Detroit. We're like 15 minutes either direction. So, you know, I started looking up Murfreesboro, and Murfreesboro, surprisingly, like there's not really a lot of, you know what I mean? So it's like, if you're a police, God, I forget. If your precinct is doing a good job, you're engaging with the community, like keep doing that. You know what I mean? But like, you know, or like the Genesee County in Flint, you know what I mean? Where they all were like, hey, we're going to take off our helmets. Like, we're put everything down. Like, we love you. We're here for you. Let's march. You know what I mean? So it's like, I saw a video of a cop that they were like, he was crying. Like, these protesters are talking to him, and he's just so upset about what's going on. They're like, just take a knee, man. Like, take a knee with us. And he was crying because he wanted to, but he couldn't in front of these other officers. And then his commanding officer comes out, pulls him out, and then puts in another cop with a baton that's just standing there like, I'm not crying. You know what I mean? So it's like, just got to show that you're tough, you know?
Yeah, it's that tough guy culture. And yeah, that's a big problem, man. You know, you wonder why people get into that type of work in the first place. Is it for the right reasons? A lot of people it is. Some of it it's not. You know, some people just want to bully people around, and, you know, some people don't. Yeah.
Well, so this is why I wanted to have you on. How do we fix it? I just figured you knew.
Nope.
Funny, you should ask. I've got the answer. So
yeah, not the right person to answer that. You know,
man.
Just trying to survive every day with what's going on, and
Well, I was telling Mat Halliday too, who's been on the show. I was like, man, sometimes I even feel like shitty talking about it. Like, you know, it's like, here's two white dudes talking about what's going on. But then on the other hand, I'm also like, well, like, isn't it a good thing that there are white folks that are finally being like, hey, you know, we should talk about like why this is fucked up and like why it should be changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we need to talk about that elephant in the room for sure. And if that brings up awkward conversations, or if you accidentally say something that you didn't mean to say, that's okay. It's all, you know, part of that learning process that we're all going through. We're trying to change something, and, you know, I think it's great that people are talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm there with you too, where it's like, I think there's got to be a little bit of leeway. Like, Ellen got shit all over because she was like, I support people of color. And then Black Lives Matter folks were like, I'm not asking you to support people of color. We're telling you to support Black Lives Matter. So it's like, instead of being like, hey, fuck you, like, hey, let me like have this conversation about why they're different. You know what I mean? Because like, I think really to get more white folks on board, like there's gonna have to be some of that on both sides. Like, look, okay, like I realize like you said that, but let me tell you why like this isn't the best. So there has to be that open line of communication, and then there has to be, white folks that are like, I'm willing to listen to that. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know, man. It's fucking weird.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yep.
Well, one thing I did want to ask you, and especially with you, because, it made me think about you when I saw this, but I saw it was either like a tweet or something online that said nobody thought the revolution would start in Minnesota except for Prince. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've been kind of talking about this with people who've come on, but like, it feels like, George Floyd started in Minneapolis, but then we're seeing it like all over the world, France, Spain, London, just everywhere. People stood in solidarity. It really feels like we're going through almost like the second wave of like a big civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we think back on it, I remember a lot of time listening with you, we're, listening to like Otis Redding or like Ray Charles' greatest hits, or like, I think you were the one who was like, have you ever heard this Dylan record? And then I was like, I fucking love Bob Dylan. So now I gotta, like there was a soundtrack to that first movement. And I wanted to ask you, like, what is there anything right now, being a musician, especially being someplace like in Minneapolis where, jazz and funk and, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that there's like rock bands and rock bars and stuff like that, but Minneapolis, especially like the times that I've been there to visit, it feels like musically it's almost like it's not like an escalated level, because you can like, I remember you were like, you want to go see Michael Bland? So we went to that. And we just got to watch Prince's drummer play for, like forever.
Yep.
So in your opinion, is there anything out there right now that you think, 20 years from now, people are going to look back and be like, oh, this was the sound of that movement?
Yeah, man, I really hope so. And a lot of my friends that are making music are starting to think about, what kind of message that they want to send to the public. And one of my studio mates who has a studio right next door to us, was like, because he did a lot of hip hop, and he basically was like, if you're not going to talk about something positive or something that's going on right now and working towards change, he's like, you can't book time. You can't come in our studio, which is crazy from a business standpoint, but this is how much it means to people is, we want to start making music that has an impact on the community and can support that community, and the proceeds can go to the community, and looking at where exactly do those proceeds go that's a whole nother conversation too.
Like when you look at stuff like the Red Cross, like you give away, like it's like virtually nothing. Yeah. So it's getting people hip to like where, funds should be going, and are they making it there, and are they going, towards things that are actually helping people out. So that's been fantastic. And, Minneapolis does have a long line of funk inspiration, largely due to Prince. And that comes through in all the music that's happening here. My good friend Arthur L.A. Buckner, he has a show on PBS called Soundfield, if anybody's interested in checking that out. But he's doing amazing stuff in the music scene and music community, and has been a real great friend to me during this time and educating me in what's happening. And so y'all gotta go check out Arthur L.A. Buckner. We'll link it up.
Nasty drummer. If
you send me the link, I'll put the show information in the show notes, so it'll be out on Apple and Spotify and everything like that. So
great.
I know that you, because I think you're 100% right, man. It's like, this is the time where, again, kind of being a white dude, I didn't like, other than, people listen to the show and we have fans who listen every week and stuff like that, but like, we're not you know, we're not like a Rogan. I'm not, you know, like anything like that. I'm just, you know, a dude talking on the internet, and hopefully some people will listen to it. But I was like, how can I, like, I don't have that like vocal platform. So it's like, how can I help? So I was like, you know what? I made some face masks when COVID hit. Awesome. If somebody buys that face mask, it goes to No Kid Hungry. Like, put food in people's bellies. You know what I mean?
I think that's awesome. And, you know, a lot of people have been talking about that, and how can I help, and how can I do this or that? And, you know, what are your strengths? What are your ways that you know, have been fortunate enough to do what you're doing, and starting there, you know, starting at that place of, you know, you're on a podcast, so you can donate the money to masks and, you know, whatever people do. Great.
Yeah, and it's awesome. Cool. The company that we use is a company called Store Frontier. So they take care of all of they're not like a sponsor of the show by any means, but like, so I don't want people being like, he's just talking about this company.
Wink,
but
wink.
Yeah, Store Frontier. No, no, it's just, I mean, anybody can use them. Store Frontier.
Investors,
right? But the way that it works is like, you create your art, you upload it, you set up your store, you order, they, you know, take a small percentage for doing the work, and then they do the printing and the shipping. So I mean, if you're a musician or a podcaster or something like that, like, I mean, you remember being in the band, man, and like having like, oh, we got to go to the show, or like, we've got t-shirts for sale online. Do I have, you know, a 2X small in the box in the closet? So this is, you know, you're not having to print more than you need or anything like that. And then anything over what it costs to send, it goes to you. So I'm just like, well, you know, let me take that profit and just put it in. So we have a shirt that says Demand Change. I didn't want it to be like Johnversations Podcast, Demand Change. And so it just says Demand Change on it and has a graphic. But if you get that one, all that goes to 8 Can't Wait. It's like, hey, can we do some like police reform, or, you know, like let's do, I don't know, man. Lord knows I'm not rolling in the green enough where I can just be like, here's a shit ton of money out of my account. But like, if I can drive it in there somehow, you know.
Yep.
You know, I did want to ask you that. Yeah, I did want to ask you this, because I know you said that your studio mate was being very selective. Like, tell me a little bit about what it's been like at the Hideaways, because you've been there. How long have you been working there now? I mean, it's been years, right?
Oh man, yeah, since I think maybe my first session there was 2008.
Okay, so like 12 years.
Yeah, quite a while. Yep. And you know, it was tough at first, and you know, we were closed down for a long time, and for a while I have my own private mix room next door, so I was, you know, able to go in there and work, you know, safely and not have to share a space with somebody else. But even, you know, setting foot in the door, you have to disinfect everything when you get there, anything you touch, and you disinfect everything you touch when you leave. So our owner, Joe Mabbitt, he's been great in keeping things really safe for people and making sure that, you know, we're not spreading this thing around, you know.
Are you guys doing like sessions and stuff now? I mean, now that things it's a little bit further along, like you got people coming back in and stuff like that. Cause like
people have,
trying to imagine what that would look like. Like if it was me, I'd be like, I'm doing this bass line in a fucking hazmat suit. I look like one of the extreme cleaners on Hoarders. Have the respirator on.
Yeah. We're fortunate enough to have enough isolation rooms to be able to keep people in their own space when they're recording. So it's not too unfamiliar of a feeling for people who have done that before. But, you know, as you know, too, a lot of recording benefits from being in the same room as somebody, and sonically that changes a lot of things too, in a good way. You know, you get some bleed and more of the old school kind of method. So it's been tough, you know, not being able to do that kind of thing. And, you know, just gauging people's feelings about it before they come in and saying, hey, what are you comfortable with? Is there anything I can do to, you know, help you feel more comfortable? and man,
you, see, you know what I'm gonna say? Like you sound like a sex worker. Like, what can I do?
What can I do? Well, man,
are you into water sports?
No, it's honestly, it's funny you say that, because the more, and ask any engineer or producer, the same thing. It's like, you realize that a lot of this job is, being a support person for musicians.
Oh yeah.
Psychologically, and making, nutritionally, like, you're really taking care of people when they're there, and your ability to do that, can drastically change the results that you get as well. So, it's funny. I mean, I talked to a lot of people who are doing the same job, and, we always joke about it. It's like, you're basically the band dad, and you get all the gossip from every side of every conversation, and it's funny, man. It's like being a therapist.
Well, I mean, I remember being in the band with you, and and I was talking to Mat Halliday about this, but he was like, yeah, it's like, you can't just come out and be like, bro, like, that take sucked. Like, what are you doing? Like, you have to like, I know. Hey man, I like what you did there, but like, what if you tried it like this? And then, I mean, just being in the situation that we were in, like, we as band members, I feel like you and I often landed on the same side, but like, just butting heads and being like, I'm not sure if I like this. And then you've got the person there who's like engineering and recording and is trying to help you produce it. And they're just kind of like, okay, well, calm down, guys. You know what I mean? Like, it's I don't know. I feel like
right. That middle person.
I'm sure it gets insanely awkward sometimes, depending on who you have in, you know what I mean?
Oh, it certainly can. Yeah. If anybody out there listening is a fan of Steve Albini and his work, with Nirvana and Weezer, a lot, tons of different bands.
Oh yeah.
But he has a hilarious take on exactly what we're talking about. And if you YouTube fake Italian, this is a thing that Steve Albini does to sort of tell somebody in a funny way that they're not quite playing the way they should be. And what he'll do is he'll say in a fake Italian accent, he'll be like, your bass line is like a dolphin. You're swimming through the ocean. But right now, your bass line is like a rhinoceros. It is stomping through, just like, it's like giving this long-winded metaphor, and not just saying your bass playing sucks. It's really bad.
You're not in the pocket. Get better.
Check it out. It's pretty funny.
I like your fake Italian accent. Sounds a lot like Borat. Your bass line.
Your bass line. She is
my life.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, it's like I don't know, man. It seems like it would be. It just seems like it's I know. I mean, just being my normal life. Like, I've been working from home. Luckily, the company that I work for is I've been working from home for like the past 3 years, so that didn't really affect me much. But all of our hours changed because of what was going on. Oh. So it was they came out with they didn't wait for the government. They came out with their own like leave program. So I actually got a COVID test last week because the week before Millie was sick and was running a fever, and then as soon as her fever broke, I got a fever, and then my headache. I got like a headache for like 4 days, and I was like, oh, like fuck no, I've done everything. I've like stayed away. Yeah, I've lived in a bubble. So I went, and for anybody listening, if you're scared to get a test, it's actually now they don't have to go all the way back into your brain. Like, it was just a regular size Q-tip. They had me go in and just do like both sides of my nose, and they dropped it in. The results I was out for the whole week because I took the test on Tuesday, and I didn't get the results back to the following Wednesday because in Tennessee, there's so many people going for tests because the numbers are shooting up that there was a delay.
Sure.
But I came back and, it was negative. And then Millie couldn't go to the babysitter because we found out that we had been around someone who may have been exposed to it. And so we didn't want to send her to the babysitter. So I've been, thankfully I have a job that's like, hey, stay home with your kid and don't come in if you're sick, stuff like that. But like, I can't imagine, again, very similar to like a restaurant, man. Like how much does a recording studio, what is that profit margin? Like if you're not, because you're still paying rent if you don't got people coming in, and
you are still paying rent, and you're also spending 2 hours to an hour on each side of setting up and tearing down, wiping stuff down, and that changes rates. But the way that I've adapted so far is a lot of people are recording at home, and they've wanted a lot of advice about how do I set this up and set that up, and have been trying to help people out that way. And then I'll end up just mixing whatever they're working on. That way we can all be, socially distant and not have to be all in the same room. Although, we obviously all miss it terribly,
Yeah, I mean, that was some of the, especially when you're working on something and I'm sure you experience this all the time working with bands or even with the Fontanelles, but there's for people who don't make music, you may not know this, but if you're recording and say you've been working on something where that doesn't sound right or that, and you're in with your band or your group musicians,
mm-hmm.
When you get that vocal line right, or if that, someone's been playing that same guitar part 7-8 times and they just can't hit it, and then they get it on that 9th or 10th time,
mm-hmm.
that fuck yeah, that energy is there. So it's got to be really weird to be hit that control room mic and be like, all right, buddy, you got it. Great job. All right, we're going to move on to the next track.
Right. Totally. I know. Yeah. It's really changed the process for a lot of people. And it's been interesting to see, because let's say somebody has a track that they've played keyboards and maybe laid a bass line on or something like that. And then they have a drummer play on what's there. As opposed to, doing something in a room with somebody, you might start to agree on different arrangement things, and maybe let's have a hit on the and a 4 here or whatever it is. And, what it's basically forced people to do is take what's already there and play within that, which can also be cool. Now I have the luxury of taking a drum take where I can look at every single thing that's in the track and play off of it or not play off of it or whatever. But, you can sort of ultimately create this Frankenstein take of, as many takes as you want, which I don't know. It could go either way. It's cool for some music. It's not cool for some other music, so I just think it's going to be different for people as they're going forward,
Yeah, it's made me wonder if the dudes in the Postal Service were time travelers. They're listen, dude, 2020 is going to be fucked up.
I know.
And thinking about that too, we were talking about that, but those guys physically mailed tracks back and forth to each other. Can you imagine if this happened, you're having to load up reel to reels, you're out of your tape machine. You're
right.
Hey, let me send this out to you, do something with it.
It's absolutely crazy. There's applications within Pro Tools now. You can literally have conversations with people as you're playing in the moment. Do you like this guy? Like this group? People are adapting slowly. Old school is pretty fun and can really, sometimes it's the accidents or things that happen within takes that weren't supposed to, that are the things that ultimately are very cool. I think that was Paul McCartney's thing when he was selecting takes with the Beatles. He's where's the take where I did something weird, or the take where I messed something up? Let's use that one, Yeah. And
it doesn't sound as super produced.
Yeah, exactly. And, as long as that stuff doesn't get removed from music, I think we'll all figure it out.
Did you watch, I wanted to ask you, did you watch the Beastie Boys doc that was on Apple TV?
No. Is it only there? Is that the only place to watch it?
No, that's legally the only place that you can watch it. But yeah, it's yeah. But yes, that they own the rights. They put it out. But it's crazy because they were talking about they're talking about MCA. They came over one day, and it made me think of you when I was watching it. It's crazy because there's so many things that I see that are are, it's hard to even explain. There's things that I see that like I never would have like thought to do, and I'd be like, oh, that's a Jay thought. And when they were when they were talking about him, like you stuck out a lot in my mind, and I mean that at like a huge compliment. But like, he was the friend that was always like, have you heard this, or have you tried that, or let's do that. Like, he was always the one that was kind of like pushing things forward. And so they said he'd gotten a new apartment, and they came over to see it, and he had a reel-to-reel tape, like a reel-to-reel machine set up, and he had a tape that was run, and then it went around one chair, like it came off the reel, went around like a kitchen chair, and then wrapped around that one, and then went around another kitchen chair, and then fed back in so that he could just play it on a constant loop. And they're like, we'd never seen anything like that. And I was like, oh, like that's how he did the drum break. And I was like, that'd be Jay. I'd go over to his house and be like, dude, check this out. Because you were the first dude I knew had like a 4-track recorder, like the DAT tapes. You'd be like,
yes,
let's do, like, okay, do this, do that. You know, I never, if it wasn't for you, I don't think I would know how to like record anything at all. Because I just would have been like, I can't fucking figure it out.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, I totally. I think experimentation is a huge part of making music, and not necessarily because, you know, you're going to get this brilliant moment in a song, but it's the participation that brings everybody together. That, I set up a garden hose, you know, this is a Sylvia Massey trick, but you set up a garden hose around a drum set with a mic in the end of the garden hose, and it creates this really crazy effect with no cymbals. So when you compress it, you get a lot of the drums but no cymbals, which is what engineers are trying to have happen a lot of the time, right?
Right, because the cymbals are so loud they cut through everything.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, it's the process of doing that everybody feels involved and everybody feels like they're a part of something cool that's happening. That's the important thing. And, you know, again, if you YouTube Sylvia Massey, she has a lot of experiments, you know, one with a band that they were like, we're going to take a Marshall stack and we're going to kick it off of a cliff. And we're going to record the sound of the Marshall stack falling off the cliff. And it's going to be the heaviest thing that's ever happened in rock music, you know? And then, so they do it, they go out to this cliff, they kick an amp off of a cliff, they record it, they get back to the studio, they listen to it, and they're like, this is horrible. This is the worst thing we've ever done. But it was the experience that brought everybody together. It wasn't necessarily a cool thing that was going to make it into the track, but it was a fun thing for everybody to participate in. And, you know, that's the stuff that is really, really fun in the recording studio.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but like, that's the thing is like, even outside the studio though, like that, like I said, like kind of in the beginning, you were always the guy that was like, hey man, like you ever listen to Slipknot, like Blown Out? and like, you know, or like, what's his name? It's Glenn something. You showed me Monkey Chant.
Glenn Kochi. Yeah. The drummer from Wilco. Yeah.
Like that. And I can't find, if you have the link to that, please send me it.
I will.
I can't find it anywhere.
Sure.
But for people who don't know, it's like this drummer who's just got like springs coming out of his drums, and they mic'd up like a fruit bowl, and he's doing all the, and he plays it against a backdrop of like a animated rainforest, and everything he does makes it sound like these like crazy monkeys running through the jungle, but it's just a dude at a drum set. And I was like, yeah. I don't know anybody but you who would be like, bro, have you seen this? I mean,
right. Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, a big part of being exposed to that stuff was going to music school and just, you know, seeing how much I didn't know about music and how much maybe I thought I knew was absolutely not true. You know, everybody came at music from a different angle, and you start seeing people doing crazy stuff like that. And you're like, whoa, this is pretty interesting. You know, it's not just 1, 4, 5 chords that, you know, you can do basically whatever, you know, whatever you like.
Well, let me ask you that too, because, you know, you were kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, as far as like the ego aspect, because, you know, when we were younger, like, you know, you were playing at like a professional level when like we were in high school, you know what I mean? And I remember like playing shows and people would be like, dude, their drummer is so good. And I think one of my favorite things about you is that you weren't one of those dudes that's like, I'm going to do like, I'm like, look how many fucking fills I can do, bro. Or I'm just like riding that. But like, you know, as a drummer, one of the most important things is like, am I staying in the pocket and am I being tasteful? Am I driving the song? And if there was something where you needed to throw down, you could do it, but that wasn't your, like, you didn't have that like show off mentality. It was like, I'm here to kind of drive that. So when you get into some place like McNally Smith and then you're around all these, and like you said, like you find out like how much you don't know, is that something that's like, is it overwhelming? Is it exciting? Because I mean, you're coming from a place where, you know, I mean, I remember like Jeff Robinson was hiring you to do studio sessions at like 18, you know what I mean? So like going into that, is it like, what's the thought process going into that?
Yeah, it's a weird spiral. And I'm glad you asked that question because some aspiring musicians may be curious about this if they're, you know, thinking about going to music school or whatever. But, you know, you go to music school, you realize how much you don't know, and you're exposed to all this music. It's great. But it also can put you into a certain box of, I'm this kind of player, you know, I'm a chops guy. This is my thing or whatever. And until you spend a significant amount of time recording music for other people, you realize that most people don't want any of that. They don't want your chops. They just want you to play in time and show up on time and be cool to hang out with, you know? And so it was a bit of an unlearning process coming out of school, thinking, well, people are ready to hear my chops now. And, you know, it was
Look what I can do.
Yeah, it was actually the opposite. You know, people were not interested in that at all. And they wanted just support the song, you know. And same thing with the recording side, because I also did a bachelor's of recording at McNally Smith. And I got really into studio gear and, you know, was like, I need a $6,000 mic to record vocals. And it's just not true. And coming out of school, you realize that it doesn't matter what the microphone is. It's what's going into the microphone that matters. It's the performance. And some of my favorite records sound horrible, really bad, but it doesn't matter. It's the song that matters and it's the performance that matters. And so that was something that took me a second to learn coming out of school, was like, oh, okay, this doesn't matter either. It helps to have nice gear,
right?
It's not the end all be all, you know.
Well, I mean, it makes me think of like you know, when we were younger, Elliot was a huge band, like False Cathedrals, and you know what I mean. I think that was like for both of us. I think that was something that was like kind of like. Sorry, what'd you say? You cut out there a little bit.
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, Elliot was a huge influence on me musically. It still is, you know?
Well, yeah. And I mean, like, but if you listen to their first record with like Suitcase and Atoms on it, like, I mean, the songs are good, but the recording is not that great. Same with like Hey Mercedes. Like, you listen to old Braid records, songs are good, but the recording quality is not that, you know, like,
right.
You know, Bon Iver, you know what I mean? A lot of his stuff, it just sounds like it was recorded in a trash can, but the songs are so good.
Yes.
You're like, man, okay. Like I don't know. I feel like if something can, I feel like what you're really trying to do is to capture and then invoke an emotion into other people.
Exactly.
So if you can do that, does it have to, you know, does the same emotion get invoked if it's, you know, super clean and polished, really nice, or does it sometimes help to be like, no, this is raw because it's supposed to feel raw, you know?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And trying not to fall into the traps of doing things the same way. There's a lot of, you know, engineers who might have one way of doing things. But if you're not looking at the song, what the song needs, you could be doing it the wrong way. You could be actually harming the performance, or, you know, if this person needs to do a handstand and run around the building 4 times before they do a take, that's what they got to do. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And try not to just impose what I think is the right way to do things on people, and just let them do their thing before I even say anything, you know.
Oh, I remember
silently, tweaking knobs in the background, but
everybody used to get so mad at me when I would record vocals because I'd be like, I need a cigarette. Because I get stressed. I'd be like, man, I'm not hitting it like the way I want. And they'd be like, don't, like, do you need? I'm like, dude, just leave me, like, let me like get, like, take the 2 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever to like get out of my head for a second so I can come back and try to do it again.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's crazy. But, it's just
so important. I won't even say anything. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I won't even say anything to a singer or somebody's performing something until they've done it a few times. I mean, just, think of yourself in there. You don't want somebody breathing down your neck after the first take and saying, hey, watch out for this. You're singing flat, or you're doing this, and pointing out everything you're doing wrong. It's just not the way to do it.
Push from your gut, not from your nose on the second take.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, let's get a feeling for what's going on here,
Right. And I think that's another thing too. It's like,
You there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Did I lose you?
No. Can you hear me? You there?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
I gotcha.
Yeah, that's the other thing to what you were saying, that like, you go see your favorite band live and they're having fun. They've got that energy, like they're in the groove, like that's like what they bring. But when they're in the studio recording that track, like that energy is not, if a lot of the times that energy is not, they're like having to like conjure that to get it into that sound. So it's like, how do I get, and then when you do something 15 times and they're like, you're not hitting it, it's hard to be like, well, I'm doing a shitty job, let me just keep up that positivity. I remember that was always the big thing, is like when you're singing, like make sure you're smiling so people can hear your smile.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that too, because it is a musical ecosystem. Music starts in a basement. It starts in somebody's bedroom. It starts in a garage. And then you get to a stage where all of a sudden you can hear yourself for the first time. And maybe not well, but you can hear yourself a little bit. And so that sort of changes how things start to happen. And then people get to the studio, and then they can really hear themselves, like more than they care to hear themselves, and then that becomes a whole new set of challenges. And so, that's my concern about all of this COVID stuff with music, is that we're eliminating the performance part of the musical ecosystem, which is a big part of where music is developed and how people shape their show, and they're getting feedback from the audience, and that changes how they might play the song again the next time.
Yeah. It's it's crazy, man. Cause like, home recording is so prevalent now anyway. I mean, there's just so many, like, especially like hip hop and stuff like that. There's just like, SoundCloud rapper after SoundCloud rapper. And then now what you're seeing is, you're seeing these people that are doing everything at home, and then their singles are blowing up again, not because not because the quality is all that great, but you know what I mean? Like you look at somebody like Lil Nas X, who did, Old Town Road. Like that's a 9 Inch Nails sample. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a Trent Reznor. It's one of the darkest bands ever. And then you're like, no, Town Road, just make it up. You know what I mean? Like, but he did that at home. You know what I mean? So it's, so I think you're right. But like what happens, the other thing too, is I feel like live performing, I feel like when you're in your bedroom or in your basement, or you're in that phase where you're like, you're writing it and like you get it done and you've put the work in. So like to you, it means something. I feel like live performing really puts that to the test. Like if you're like, this song is going to kill, and you go out and people are like, well, that song sucked. You know what I mean? But so like,
I know,
or like not even that sucked, but like I liked your first song or whatever song, but you know what I mean? Like it takes out that kind of like, well, let the general public kind of knock you down. Yeah. I know that like in Rising Tide and a lot of stuff. I know that like I brought ideas that I was like, oh man, this is going to kill. Like this is going to be awesome. And then it just like, it didn't go over well.
Sure.
But like,
yeah. It
if there was
happens to
nobody to
everybody.
tell me, like
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah,
so
you
good
have
at everything. You know?
I know, it's these egos, man, I tell you. Yeah. But you have to bounce it off the listener, and they have to believe that what you're bouncing off of them is true. So, yeah, people, I think now more than ever can smell if something isn't quite right or something isn't quite honest, in music. People are really good at identifying that these days, even young kids,
Yeah. Well, and it's like kind of what you were saying as far as like, getting into like you do like, so like, for example, with the podcast, like when this episode is done, I know like exactly where the music's going to go. Like this is where the intro is going to go. Like I've done that so many times, but like but when I first started doing it, I was like, I'm having to figure out Adobe Audition. I'm having to figure out Adobe Premiere for the video. Like, I don't know, how do I make this transition look decent? I've got that and it works for the show. But if you were to give me somebody else's show or give me a song and I went in and I was like, well, your intro is going to be here. And then this is where the meat, you know what I mean? Like if it's not cohesive to who that artist is or who that content creator is, they're gonna be like, this doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. I do intros to all of my shows because it just feels right to me. Like, somebody like Rogan or something like that, they're just like, hey, we're fucking talking when we start. You know what I mean? Because like,
yeah,
that doesn't, So if he just started doing that, people would be like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? You're on episode like 1059. Right. Why are you just doing interview or introductions now, But, well, one thing I did want to ask you to kind of close, because I know we've been going now we're coming up on 2 hours.
Sure.
But I did want to ask you, again, for musicians and for, people in the recording industry, the music industry, things like that. Like it's a very crazy time. If somebody wanted to, support you, support the Fontanelles, kind of show, show like support for that art and stuff like that, what is the best way for them to do that? If they want to like, can you buy the record on Bandcamp, or is it just up for free? Or I mean, is it like what's the best way for people to support art, not only you as an artist, but for other artists right now?
Yeah, man. There obviously you can go to Bandcamp and support all of that stuff. If people are wanting to take their donation further, there are a lot of great organizations. Juxtaposition in Minneapolis, one of my friends, Alice Cleve, has he did a little EP and donated all the proceeds to that, and they're doing great stuff in the community. And I just encourage people, if they are feeling like they want to contribute to the arts, do it locally and look at what's going on in your community. And I mean, there's amazing organizations out there, and that's just one of them. But yeah, I think I personally, you can download the Fontanelles thing if you want. You don't have to pay for it. I'm doing okay, but there's a lot of places that money could go that would do better work, so do a little research, see what's going on in Minneapolis and see what's going on in the scene. And yeah, people would be very grateful.
God damn it, dude. You were like one of the most, I don't know, like getting older, I think this is something that I've realized, but you've always been like that, as far as like, hey, I'm doing okay. Like, take care of other people, man. You're just, I don't know. You're a good dude. I think the world the world definitely needs more people like you in it. And I just want to say thank you for doing it, man. When everything gets back to normal, like someday, or, you know what I mean? Like, would you come back and hang out again?
Of course. I would love to. Absolutely, man.
Awesome, man. Well, stick around for me after we wrap up. But just again, wanted to say thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Guys, Jason McGlone, you can check out his band, The Fontanelles, on Bandcamp. We're going to link everything up. Download. You heard the man. Download the record for free, but share it, get it out there, and make sure that you're donating. We will post some links up for Juxtaposition as well. Get that up. I'll get that from you after we wrap up. But guys, that's episode 23. Thank you so much. We will be back next week. Jay, again, man, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, John.
All righty, guys. We'll see you.